Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday, December 10th. A lot to talk about this morning. It looks like accumulating snow for the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor from late tonight into the morning hours on Wednesday. In general, I expect a coating to about 3 inches or so in this area, with the lower amounts in the urban areas and the higher amounts in the northern and western suburbs. The rain showers ahead of the cold frontal system will redevelop during the midday and afternoon hours. There may actually be a slackening off or even an ending of the precipitation early this evening. Then, as a wave of low pressure forms along the frontal boundary zone, the precipitation should resume later in the evening and change over to snow probably shortly after midnight in much of the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor, and again continue well into the morning hours on Wednesday. Now, this particular snow event, definitely the snow should have a much easier time to stick on the grassy surfaces. Nonetheless, there could be some impact on the Wednesday morning commute, even though the roadways will certainly have less accumulation in the grassy surfaces. Let's take a look at the latest surface map. And here is the all-important slow-moving cold frontal system already crossing into western Pennsylvania. It actually will slip through the Philadelphia and D.C. metro regions early to mid-afternoon and then late afternoon across New York City. Temperatures will peak for the day over the next few hours, perhaps in the mid or upper 50s in D.C., Philly, New York City. Rain showers will resume during the midday and continue in the afternoon, but then temperatures will start to drop during the mid and late afternoon hours, certainly into the evening hours. It'll be a noticeable drop in the temperatures, and then as the precipitation resumes later this evening, should change over to snow shortly after midnight, and again continue into the morning hours on Wednesday. Quite a cold air mass follows this frontal system by tomorrow night. Low temperatures will drop to near 20 degrees in many suburban locations in the I-95 corridor, and there should be a snow cover to go along with that influx of cold air. One other area of interest over the next few days will be quite a storm over the northwestern part of the nation, from, let's say, northern California up along the Oregon and Washington coastlines, with plenty of rainfall along coastal sections and some snow in the higher elevations inland over the next couple of days. Well, here's a look at the U.S. radar map from Telecast.com. A couple things I want to point out. First of all, there's kind of a break in the action right now in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, but again, occasional rain showers will return during the midday and especially during the afternoon as that frontal system works its way across the region later in the day. But notice here, a lot of precipitation on behind the surface front. That surface front actually extends right now in a fashion like this. So a lot of this is behind the front. And again, we talked about this over the last couple of days. This will be a post-frontal event. Not all that easy to get accumulating snow in the big cities, especially during the month of December in a post-frontal situation. But it looks like it will happen this time from late tonight into the morning hours. You really have to thread the needle to get accumulating snow in a post-frontal situation. The colder and drier air is advancing in from the north and west, and usually the frontal precipitation is departing, so you just have to get perfect timing. And it looks like in this case there'll be enough of activity behind the front to allow for precipitation post-front. And we'll discuss many of the factors that lead me to believe we will indeed have plenty of post-frontal precipitation late tonight and tomorrow. Again, that front actually passes through at the surface during the afternoon hours in the I-95 corridor region. Well, let's look at a few of the factors involved in forming a wave along the slow-moving frontal boundary zone, again enhancing precipitation behind the frontal system in the colder air. First of all, we've been talking about this upper level energy. This is a 500 millibar forecast map from the 0Z GFS model run, and all this energy is going to help to form a wave of low pressure along the frontal boundary zone over the next several hours. And here we go into the afternoon and then the evening hours, and again the front slows down as it encounters this southwest to northeast flow in the upper part of the atmosphere, basically the frontal system will become aligned with the southwest to northeast flow of air, and therefore very slow moving, but enough cold air filters into the I-95 corridor region to cause a changeover to snow after midnight. And again, this is one of the factors involved in developing that wave of low pressure, which will produce precipitation behind the frontal system. And by later on tonight and into the morning hours, here we go, it gets kind of strung out at this time, but it should be snowing early tomorrow and probably into the mid to late morning hours in the I-95 corridor region. Again, it could wind down as a little bit of a mixture of rain and snow. What happens is during the heart of the snow event, there will be strong upward motion, and that causes dynamical cooling in the atmosphere. As the precipitation winds down, it really winds down because the upward motion slackens off, and that's what could happen towards the tail end of this system late tomorrow morning into the midday hours. The upward motion will weaken, the dynamical cooling will weaken, therefore it actually warms up a little bit aloft. May get a little bit of mixture in with the rain as it winds down midday tomorrow. Now that poses a possibility of some black ice later in the day tomorrow into the early evening hours. You have to watch for that, as temperatures will be close to freezing and some of the roadways could still be wet later in the day on Wednesday. Let's move ahead here. That all pushes on by. Cold air kind of floods in by tomorrow night. Again, low temperatures down near 20 degrees in many of the suburban locations by early Thursday morning. Perhaps even some upper teens in some areas, with looks like a fresh snow cover in most regions. Well, in addition to that upper level energy, the vorticity at 500 millibars, I want to point out a couple other factors involved with enhancing upward motion for this particular system. Again, upward motion that will produce precipitation behind the front later on tonight into the morning hours. A very strong jet streak exists this morning across the upper Midwest, the eastern part of the Great Lakes, and that will slide on to the north and east. And here we are by this evening, the I-95 corridor region kind of on the right side of this upper level jet streak, and that is a favored area for upward motion. So this too will play a factor. You have the vorticity in the upper part of the atmosphere, you have this jet streak. Here we are by late tonight, and by tomorrow morning pretty much right on top of the mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S. So very strong winds in the upper part of the atmosphere, increasing upward motion that in turn results in precipitation late tonight and tomorrow morning. Now, one other factor with this slow-moving cold frontal system, there is a frontal boundary zone, and when I talk about frontal boundary zones, I mean a temperature gradient, basically much colder to the north and west, much warmer to the south and east, and that causes what we term frontogenesis. And this, again, like the jet streak, leads to upward motion. So watch this area, very strong frontogenesis. This is beginning the day today on Tuesday, and there it goes, right on top of the I-95 corridor region. Very strong frontogenesis associated with that jet streak aloft and the slow-moving surface frontal system. This too will enhance precipitation. Bottom line here, it could also be not only some snow after midnight into the morning hours. We'll have to watch out for some heavier snow bands, mesoscale snow bands, when you see a frontogenesis pattern like this. And again, that's heavier snow band will cause quick accumulations, especially on grassy surfaces, but even roadways could become slick if you get underneath a heavier snow band late tonight, tomorrow morning. Well, let's finally wrap up by looking at the surface forecast maps from the 0Z GFS model run. Again, pretty much in the clear right now in terms of precipitation in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, but frontal rain showers are on the way. It looks like midday and afternoon hours. Already cold air forming a changeover from rain to snow down across places like Arkansas. And here we go. By the early evening hours, still some rain along the I-95 corridor region early evening, but shortly after midnight it should change over to snow. And again, there's this enhancement of the precipitation behind the frontal system, aided by the jet streak aloft, aided by strong frontogenesis in the atmosphere and all that upper level energy. And here we go. By late tonight, it should be all snow from the urban areas to the north and west. Still some rain holding on along coastal sections. This is shortly after midnight, but by tomorrow morning, all areas in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City metro region should be seeing snow this time tomorrow morning. And again, while it will accumulate much easier on grassy surfaces, there can be some impact on the Wednesday morning commute. It then tends to wind down late morning, midday hours, and again, because of the weakening upper atmosphere, upward motion in the upper atmosphere, can be a mixture of rain as it winds down during the mid to late morning, even into the midday hours. And then during the afternoon, expect some clearing skies and watch out for some potential black ice as some of the roadways may remain wet later in the day, and temperatures will be awfully close to the freezing mark. And then overnight tomorrow night, high pressure moves right on top of the region, and one of the coldest nights, if not the coldest night of the season so far, with low temperatures by early Thursday, perhaps in the upper teens in some suburban locations, and certainly near 20 degrees in most areas in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. So accumulating snow event from late tonight into the morning hours on Wednesday, and then quite cold behind it for Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, going into the day on Thursday. High temperatures on Thursday will have a hard time reaching the middle 30s in the I-95 corridor. Now we have some more activity. Just looking ahead briefly, it looks like perhaps a heavy rain event on Friday night, and another big storm potential for next Tuesday or so, and that could be snow or rain, but we'll have to monitor that over the next several days. Again, a threat for heavy rain Friday night, and perhaps a snowstorm to deal with next Tuesday or so, a week from now. But for now, let's focus on the accumulating snow late tomorrow morning. And that's it for now from PerspectiveWeather.com. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.